Welcome home. It's how everyone greeted me the first day at my first TEDActive. TEDActive was a conference hosted by TED for some of the most active members of the community. It included TEDx licensees and event organizers, educators who used TED lessons in their classrooms, translators who helped make the talks accessible in over 109 languages, TED speakers, fellows, and veteran TEDsters. I was a TEDx organizer. So when I showed up and people said, "Welcome home," it felt comfortable. It felt familiar. Welcome home was a perfect greeting because it felt like I had just arrived at a family reunion filled with relatives I had just met. Some of you may already know this feeling. It feels kind of the same right here. But it's like, how many of you have had your mom call you up and surprise you with an invitation to the wedding of a distant cousin, and you can't say no because she already RSVP'd for you, so you show up and you start worrying, what am I going to wear? Who am I going to bring? What will I talk to? What will I talk about? Who will I meet? Will my tios and tias and abuelas and abuelitas keep telling me, "You're so big now. What are you going to settle down and get married?" And that's just me. And so all of this anxiety builds up until the day of the event, and it comes and you go. And you get to the door, you brace yourself, and you enter. And the first person who sees you lights up and says, "Hey!" and welcomes you in with open arms. And immediately, all of that anxiety, it melts away. And you realize all of that worrying was for nothing because they embrace you with love and acceptance. And they make sure that your plate is always full and that you get on the dance floor and that they catch you up on all the family stories because you're family. And that's what families do. That's what coming That's what coming to TEDactive was like. And that one greeting, "Welcome home," helped me realize one of our greatest superpowers as people. It's a superpower that each one of us has and that every one of you can tap into at any moment. It's the power of radical hospitality. Now, radical means affecting something fundamentally. It means diving deeper and disrupting something at its core. Hospitality derives from the Latin word hospes, which means both host and guest, and it demonstrates the intrinsic relationship between the two. So, radical hospitality means putting extraordinary emphasis and effort into making sure someone feels fundamentally honored and genuinely welcome. It means creating a safe space for people and providing for their needs. It means showing up as your best self to be a gracious host. But you already know this, right? It's something we've been doing for centuries. You think of the story of the Good Samaritan or the cultural tradition of inviting travelers into your house for a meal. Carlos told me that you have a saying here in the Dominican Republic, "El agua no se niega." Water is not denied. Meaning if someone shows up and they're thirsty, it's your responsibility to give them water. And he said there are two cups in his house that were reserved just for that purpose. But now think, when's the last time someone showed up at your door and knocked and asked for anything? When's the last time you opened that door and offered something? This basic generosity is a part of our humanity that we're sadly losing to fear. Robert Putnam is a Harvard political scientist who researches the growing isolation of people in the United States. He studies people who live in communities with people who are different from them. He found that when people are near people who are different, they tend to withdraw. But they don't just withdraw from people who are different from them, they also withdraw from people from their same social group. They tend to watch more TV. They have fewer friends. They don't participate in community activities as much. When Putnam saw these results, excuse me, when Putnam saw these results, he couldn't believe it. So he dedicated more years to looking into the data. He interviewed 30,000 people and found that the data was correct. He concluded that in the face of diversity, most of us retreat. Trust and social acceptance and social engagement reduce. We close our doors. You may be seeing this right now in your own communities. But TEDActive had one of the most diverse groups in one place at one time for a very compressed week of intense interaction and celebration. Hundreds of people from different cultures, different countries, different languages, political leanings, socioeconomic backgrounds, they sacrificed, they saved, they raised funds to get to the event and welcomed each other in. Relationships were built there that spanned continents and last lifetimes. So, what did we do differently? Why did we have a better outcome? When I became the creative director of TEDActive, I looked into this effect more deeply. I asked a lot of attendees what their experience was. I looked at the feedback. I figured out the process of creating an environment for ideas worth spreading, actually employed two principles that are at the heart of radical hospitality. We honored the place and we honored the people. There's a phrase I've been hearing a lot in the DR this week. Es complicado. Well, getting people to practice radical hospitality is just that. It's complicated. This is because human beings tend towards tribal behavior that influences us to look for sameness and reject otherness. It becomes more compounded by our tendency to operate from a mentality of scarcity instead of a mentality of abundance. In scarcity, people believe in a zero-sum game. Resources are finite, opportunities are few and far between. It generates fear and anxiety because in that game, if I win, you lose, and no one wants to lose. In an abundance mentality, though, it assumes resourcefulness and resilience. It generates confidence and connection because of its long-term, expansive view. We have unlimited resources. If we don't, we will make more. And if you win, I can be happy because maybe I might win later. So to practice radical hospitality, we have to consciously override our tribal instincts and replace the scarcity mentality with one of abundance. We can foster this transition by honoring the place. This means establishing and protecting an environment of trust in which people feel safe to show up as their authentic selves and openly engage in shared experiences. At TEDActive, we achieve this by clearly communicating high expectations and establishing ground rules for respectful interaction. We added fun, playful elements in the space to inspire creative participation. We designed areas that invited thoughtful conversation and personal reflection. We made food, beverages, and snacks continuously available so no one felt like they needed to hoard them. We planned activities that allowed people to explore the environment freely. We empowered our guests to be responsible for co-creating the overall experience and for strengthening the community. But you don't need a huge venue or a big budget or a big team to create a safe space. You can honor the place you go to anywhere, anytime, simply by leading by example. I fell in love with the ukulele because it's small, you can bring it everywhere, and no matter what song you play on it, it sounds happy. I also love bringing people together. So when I started going to these conferences, I would bring the ukulele with me and I would sing. And no matter how badly I sing, because it's pretty bad, people would join me. If people didn't know the words to the song, somebody would look up the lyrics on their phone and share it with other people. And over the years, more people would buy ukuleles. I think Freddie has one. And we would all show up together and just jam. And the funny thing is, the more awful we were, the more off-key we were, ooh, that was weird, the more people would join us because they saw us being happy in our awfulness. And it made it okay for them to join us in being awful too. By setting an example and putting yourself out there, it makes it safe for other people to put themselves out there. The second element to radical hospitality is honoring the people. On a personal level, that means honoring yourself and engaging your capacity to be both a generous host and a gracious guest. I want you to consider, how do you show up on a daily basis? So here's a quick exercise to provide some perspective for you. Everybody close your eyes. Remember the last time you looked in the mirror. How did you see yourself? Did you see lines? Did you see marks on your skin? Did you see any gray hairs? Now put that image aside. Take a deep breath and imagine that you are now with someone who loves you unconditionally. Imagine seeing yourself through their eyes. As they look at you, can you see the warmth and kindness in their eyes? Can you see the smile that spreads across their face as they see you for who you are and not what you look like? Now, how do you see yourself? You can open your eyes. How does that image compare to the one you had before? We can often be just as unkind or kind to ourselves as we are to other people. By now, many of you have heard of the importance of being vulnerable and practicing empathy, but taking the next step to regularly doing both and making that an integral part of yourself, it can be daunting. Like in the wedding scenario earlier, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just show up, open the door, and enter. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show up, open the door, and welcome in. Henry David Thoreau once wrote, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." When you look at another person who you don't know, do you see a what or do you see a who? Do you see a stranger or do you see a potential friend? Do you see an ally or do you see a threat? Do you see a stereotype? Practicing radical hospitality means seeing every person as an individual who is worthy of respect and honoring them as an equal. I currently live in Houston, which not too long ago beat my birth city, New York, as the most ethnically diverse city in the United States. Much of Houston's growth can be attributed to its welcoming attitude towards immigrants and refugees. As of 2013, 1.4 million immigrants call Houston home, and since 2011, 243 Syrian refugees have resettled into Texas. But after the attacks in Paris, Texas Governor Greg Abbott tried to block any more Syrian refugees from being resettled in our state. When he looked at them, he saw potential threats instead of seeing people in need. The thing is, over 11 million Syrians are truly people in need. According to the European Commission on Humanitarian Aid and Civil Protection, more Syrians have been displaced from their homes in the world's greatest humanitarian crisis, greater than those affected by the Indian Ocean, by the Haiti earthquake, and by Hurricane Katrina combined. Almost half of these are displaced children who have lost their schools, lost their parents, and lost their childhood amid the brutality. Their healthcare, education, and economy are decimated. And for nearly 5 years, they've been fleeing the collapsed infrastructure and fleeing the violence since the take a breath. Since the Syrian civil war began, 240,000 people have been killed, including 12,000 children. And it didn't really make media until there was a picture of that one child on the beach. 1 million more have been wounded or permanently disabled. This week, though, the U.S. Justice Department filed papers in federal court saying that Texas did not have the authority to act on national immigration policy and it could not bar Syrian refugees from resettling in the state. So less than 24 hours ago, Texas withdrew its request blocking Syrian refugees and must now welcome them in. Yeah. The problem is, over half the states in the US still refuse to accept Syrian refugees. Here's the danger in acting out of fear instead of compassion. If we deny Syrians refuge, we may actually be aiding the terrorists. According to the US State Department and the UN, Syrian children who are left behind are becoming malnourished and undereducated, making them vulnerable. Many are being forcibly recruited as fighters and are being used as human shields and support. If we reject them, we condemn them to being used and abused and exploited. If we take the opposite approach, however, and reject xenophobia and reject fear, we can strip terrorist organizations of their greatest weapon, people. By recognizing the Syrian refugees as people whose struggles deserve respect, and by having the courage to open our doors to them and welcome them in, we strip the terrorists of the opportunity to influence, to tax, to enslave, to hold hostage, to abuse, or to rape any more people. Through radical hospitality, we can deny terrorists their greatest assets and diffuse their power. Today, I facilitate social innovation and design impact strategies as a consultant, and the practice of radical hospitality is as important in our private sector as it is in our communities. It helps us effectively engage diverse stakeholders across cities, organizations, corporations, and campaigns. But more than that, radical hospitality brings us back to our humanity. Joan Chittister, co-chair of the Global Peace Initiative for Women, describes it as the way we turn a prejudiced world around by coming out of ourselves and taking people into a space that is our lives, our minds, our hearts, our work, and our efforts. Radical hospitality is the ultimate art of revolutionizing social equity by honoring that we all have something to bring to the table, and by welcoming everybody in and leaving nobody out. Consider this. At some point in your life, you will be the outsider. Millennials are the most diverse generation in human history. And as relationships among our countries become more complex and more intertwined, as travel becomes more accessible, as migration becomes more common, our communities will only continue to become more diverse. And whether you're betting on Mars or SpaceX or Mars One or NASA or SpaceX, we are going to get to Mars. They will colonize it within the next 2 decades. The question is not a matter of if, it's now a matter of when. And when that happens, we will all start to look back at Earth as our home. So whether you find yourself amidst that unprecedented diversity or coming back to your home planet, when you want to be welcomed home with respect and acceptance, I want to end with a reminder of who we were. It's captured by American poet Emma Lazarus and engraved in bronze in the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, which was a gift to the US from the people of France. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside a golden door. I ask you, in your country, in your city, in your neighborhoods, when you walk out that door, when you get home, wherever you show up to be your best self, to be your best host, will you lift up your lamp? Will you open your arms? And will you welcome everyone in? Thank you.